Welcome everybody, I am Traren. In this video we're going to be going over basic Death Knight tanking in World of Warcraft. I expect you to have a general understanding of your class abilities and talents, as we won't be going over any of those in detail. We will be going over your main defensive abilities and how or when to use them properly. This video is for beginners that want to get into some Mythic Plus dungeons or light raiding. These are my opinions and things that I've seen and experienced in the past doing Mythic Plus dungeons myself. Please let me know in the comments how wrong I am. First, let's take a look at all the abilities we'll be talking about today. Morrowind, Icebound Fortitude, Dancing Rune Weapon, Anti-Magic Shell, Anti-Magic Zone, Rune Tap, Vampiric Blood, Death Strike, Mind Freeze, Asphyxiate, and Lichborn. You'll notice I have these broken into three categories: proactive, both, and reactive. Let's start on the left-hand side with proactive. Morrowind. This is your main damage mitigation ability. Keep this up as much as possible because it applies Bone Shield, which increases your armor and haste by a significant amount. Shoot for about 5 stacks here at all times and you'll be doing great. Icebound Fortitude. This is a cooldown which you want to make sure you use before you take big damage, whether it be a large pull or a certain boss mechanic that hits hard. Using it after you've lost half of your health is pointless. Make sure you use it ahead of time so that you don't lose the hit points to begin with. Dancing Rune Weapon. This is another cooldown that you'll want to use before you take melee damage. It increases your parry chance and increases your damage done. This is great for large pulls. You're also able to apply double of the bone shields during this time. Anti-Magic Shell. This absorbs magic damage, and it prevents harmful magic effects from being applied to you. It has a relatively short cooldown, so you'll be using this anytime you have a pull with casters, and of course on any boss mechanics that do magic damage. Anti-Magic Zone. You're going to want to get this down for your group or your raid if you're about to take spell damage, because you'll reduce it for anyone in the zone. It's most useful for boss abilities that affect the group or raid, but a large pool of casters that randomly select party members would also be ideal. Rune Tap. This is actually new as of the Prepatch or Shadowlands. This was once a talent but is now baseline. It seems better than it really is. Currently the only time you're going to be using this is at the beginning of a pull. It'll reduce your damage by 20% as you're getting your bone shield stacks up. Using it during a fight actually is less survivability than using Death Strike, which we'll talk about in a moment. Just make sure you use it at the beginning of each pull, and otherwise forget about it. Let's hop on over to the reactive side and check out those abilities. Death Strike. This is your main healing ability and also your biggest attack. You want to maximize your healing with this by making sure you've taken at least some damage, but for the most part, you'll be using this as often as possible and filling in with your other damaging abilities. Mind Freeze. This is your interrupt. In most groups, you're going to have a set order to avoid overlapping, but since the tank is doing the pulling, I suggest you go first. And even if your group doesn't set an order, you should be interrupting as often as possible. You really can't do it too much. Asphyxiate. This is a 5-second stun that's useful for sometimes interrupting things that you can't stop with Mind Freeze. It works great for channeled abilities on trash, etc. You can use it to stop anything that is stunnable from hitting you for 5 seconds also, which is always nice. It's pretty situational and will change from dungeon to dungeon, but you'll find great times to use it. Lichborn. This is a small cooldown that increases your leech by 10%. It also gets you out of Charm, Fear, or Sleep effects. Use it when you need a little extra self-healing, or if you need to get out of one of those effects, obviously. Let's take a look at the middle now, where we have an ability that is both proactive and reactive, or not at the same time, but it can be used as either. Vampiric Blood. This is a great oh crap button. It increases your health, it increases your healing and absorbs received, and it's on a relatively short cooldown. You really want to be using this as often as possible, not just as an oh crap button, but use it before you take damage, use it after you take damage. It doesn't really matter, just make sure you're using it. The most important part of this is making sure that you have your bone shield buff up from Morrowind as much as possible before taking damage. Use your other abilities to fill in when you know you'll be taking more damage or taking more damage than usual. And use your healing abilities often. Knowing the dungeon or raid really well is also important. Practice does make perfect. Also, letting your group or raid know that you're new to tanking or new to the dungeon or raid can also be helpful. A lot of times they'll support you and suggest things that are helpful, or they might kick you out or remove you from the group, but you don't want to play with those types of people anyways. One last thing, never ever turn your back on a boss or group of enemies. It leaves you exposed, unable to dodge or parry. Please just don't do it. That wraps up this video on Death Knight tanking basics. Please make sure to like and subscribe so you know when future videos are released. Also catch me over on Twitch at twitch.tv/jtraren, where we can hang out, answer questions, and do some dungeons. That's it for now. Until next time.